Take a moment and picture what your life would be like if you never had to work again. How would you spend all that newly unlocked time? Would you watch movies all day? Would you spend more time with your kids and family? Would you find a passion in volunteer work? Do whatever works for you, but it is important to understand that it is entirely attainable. However, dreaming of this life and living it are two different things, and in this video, we will share the 3 investments you must own never to have to work again. When we talk about work, there are 2 types of people, those who love their jobs and those who hate them. Unfortunately, only a small portion of the working population falls into the first group. If most people hate their jobs, then what's holding them back from quitting the job they dislike? Alright, that thing is called money. The harsh truth is that most people can barely meet their bills every month, let alone start to build up their own worth to escape the rat race forever. However, without access to rely upon fate, most people will have to work well into their later years and rely on government pensions to support them. However, if I know one thing about you, it's that you don't wait until you're in adult diapers to finally leave the workforce, and given this is the case, you need to start building up an asset base that you can use to facilitate your future work for your life. While there are numerous ways to make this dream a reality, the most realistic approach for most people is acquiring these 3 particular assets, each of which we will get into right now. The first asset that you will definitely need to own en route to living work-free life is real estate. I know you hear about real estate investing all the time, and how amazing it is, and while some of the benefits from this form of investment are overblown, that doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve a place in your work-free portfolio. To give a fair assessment of this very popular asset, let's briefly go over some of its pros and cons, and how it can help you facilitate your dream of slamming down your 2 weeks' notice on your boss's desk. When it comes to real estate, and more particularly residential real estate, there are a lot of aspects working in the investor's favor. For instance, similar to the fact that land is limited means that the property on said land will naturally become more valuable over time as freelance supply decreases. Moreover, most people don't see any appeal in living under a bridge, which means that there will always be a demand for housing, which, again, is a huge score for you as someone aiming to use real estate to facilitate your work-free dream. Finally, let's face it, real estate is not exactly the hardest asset to figure out and identify good deals with. True, it can take some work, but screening tenants and setting up a rental agreement will take much less effort than trying to figure out how warrants with round-down provisions work now. No asset is perfect, and the major drawback for most people looking to get into the real estate game is the higher capital barrier to entry. For those looking to acquire physical property of their own, you're going to need tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Unfortunately for most people, earning regular salaries and building up this kind of money can take decades, which is why so many people get stuck working until they're well into their later years. However, assuming you can amass the money you need to get into the real estate game, here's how that will get you one step closer to living your work-free dream. This asset's power comes from the cash flow that this asset provides when you leave the workforce. The general rule of thumb is that for any property you acquire for rental purposes, the rental income should meet the 1% rule, which states that you should be able to charge 1% of the purchase prices of the said property every month. This is advised so that not only can you meet all the operating costs of the home, but you can ideally obtain a positive cash flow from the property, which is essential because it's this cash flow that you'll be relying, in part, on to replace your now given up salary. One thing to keep in mind is that from a single property loan, there's basically no way you can live off the rental profits, that is unless you move back in with your parents and live strictly on a simple noodle diet. Even if your cash flow says $1,000 a month, this will be insufficient to meet your monthly needs. Unless you have the capital to replicate these results with a handful of properties, then you'll have to branch out and use 2 other investments, which we'll talk about in a minute. The second investment that will make your work for life reality is an online business. It's really never been cheaper and easier to start a business than it is today. Due to the ability to combine value and scale through an internet business, it's absolutely a must for anyone seeking financial freedom. Now, I don't want to give off the impression that because you'll be starting an online business you are simply trading one job for another. We both agreed from the start that you'll be relying upon investments to never have to work again, and that remains our goal as such. When you start your business, you must create systems that will operate without your involvement. For instance, you can start an e-commerce shop and hire a web designer to build your shop and an assistant to conduct product research and coordinate your dealings with suppliers, while you sit back and finance the operation. Alternatively, creating content may be your passion and you may hire a team to run your blog or create videos on YouTube as I do. Now you may be wondering, how in the hell an online business even makes money in this way given all the expenses you incur by hiring a team? But this is actually the beauty of an online business. Many online businesses do not have that traditional overhead costs, while also having significantly more reach via the power of the internet, which results in you collecting sizable profits. Despite having others run the business for you, I'll admit that in the beginning, you'll have to put in some work to get your business off the ground. Tasks like deciding on a business model and hiring those who will help build your business will fall on your shoulders, but if you set things up properly through the remainder, your responsibility should be strictly financial. I know my own YouTube business well. I do a lot of the work myself that I could easily hand off to work to freelancers and literally have the whole system run on autopilot while I collect checks from Google every single month. Once you have your online business up and running, and turning a profit month after month, you need to use that money and reinvest it back into your online business in order to scale up. If you deploy this capital properly, it should result in your income rising to even greater heights as time goes on, and this is incredibly important. Most assets that you will use to facilitate your break from the corporate world will require a lot of capital. To get started, it's your online business that will speed up the acquisition of these assets. The third asset you are going to need is stocks. Well, I have nothing against dividend stocks. There are two options in stocks: dividends and growth stocks with price appreciation. I believe growth stocks will be your best bet, and here's why. Generally speaking, dividend stocks tend to grow at a much slower rate than growth stocks because instead of reinvesting profits back into the company, they're paying them out to shareholders instead to gain a sizable position. In dividend stocks, most of the work will be on your shoulders. However, with growth stocks, there is much less reliance on your own capital investments to see your portfolio rise over time. In fact, if you pick the right stocks, your portfolio can grow at exponential rates without a ton of capital being invested, which is great for those who can't bear to look at their boss for even one more day. Now the main goal of your stock portfolio, in this situation, is to complement the income you're earning from your online business. Typically, people have lost their portfolio in estates once they have amassed millions of dollars. However, given that your stocks aren't going to be your only source of income, you actually need much less than you'd expect. Here's an example to illustrate what we mean by this. Let's say you have determined that you can involve $50,000 a year, or roughly $4,000 a month. If you were to follow the 4% rule, then you would need $1.25 million invested to achieve your desired lifestyle. However, with the three-prong approach we have been discussing, your portfolio requirements will be much less to achieve the same result. If you're able to acquire two properties which, when combined, provide you $1,000 a month and you can collect $2,000 in online profits, then you really just need to collect $1,000 a month from your stock investments. To achieve this, you would only need $300,000 invested, which is a much less daunting task than the $1.25 million we just discussed. The best part about this setup is that the growth of your asset should exceed the rise in your expenses over time. For example, your online business and stock should be yielding returns of more than the current inflation at any time, which actually offers you more leverage in your expenses as time goes on. This is really important because the last thing you would want to be doing is calling your boss and begging for your old job back. One thing to keep in mind is that the key to pulling off this great escape is to start as early as possible. As they say, the best time to invest was 10 years ago, the second best time is now. Acquiring real estate properties is no easy task, and most online businesses will take a few years to become sustainable. You need to be consistent with your plan, otherwise you would be planning to fail. Moreover, by allowing compound interest to work its magic, you can amass a large portfolio that will support your non-working years. But remember, the longer you delay, the longer you'll have to work. So, stop thinking and start doing it now. Thank you for your time. If you believe this video has added value to your understanding of finances, don't miss to like and subscribe.